All right, today, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be talking about evolution. I do have a couple things I want to say about it before we jump into the notes. First off, evolution is a thing. All right, evolution in and of itself is not the theory. Right, people keep wanting to tell me that evolution is just a theory and I don't have to believe in its existence. Evolution is a thing. We have witnessed it. All right, it's the reason why you have to keep getting vaccinated every year because viruses evolve, bacteria evolves, things evolve. You know, we forced it to happen. As a group, as humans, we have forced evolution to happen on other animals. That's how we started with wolves and got dogs. Right? We called it selective breeding. It was really forceful evolution. Right? Another thing I want to talk about is this picture that you are seeing in front of you right now. Let me be a little bit bigger there. All right, this is a very common picture. It shows a chimpanzee turning into a larger ape, turning into a human. That's the original picture, and then jokingly going back down. Uh, that is completely false. I chose this picture to show you that this is incorrect. There is not a scientist in existence that is going to try to tell you that we evolved from chimpanzees. In fact, it's what most scientists want to tell you is that humans and chimpanzees are pretty close cousins. We have a shared ancestor, and that is part of the theory. Right? There's a lot of evidence suggesting it, right? But as I keep saying, evidence is not proof. Proof is solid, proof is undeniable, evidence suggests things. So I will be telling you when things are fact and when things have a lot of evidence backing it up. I don't want there to be any kind of confusion about that. I will let you guys make your own decisions on your own belief systems. But the evidence suggests, based on a fact, that humans and chimps are very similar. And genetically speaking, we are, I think it was 99% similar genetically, right? So fact is, we seem to be very closely related based on genetics, and a lot of evidence, fossil evidence and other things, suggest that we have a shared ancestor. That group split and evolved two different ways. All right. So people saying that we came from chimps, incorrect. All right, so let's go into the actual notes. What is evolution? Evolution is what we've been reading about. We've been reading about natural selection. We've been reading about things causing evolution. Evolution is the end result of these things that we've been talking about. The genes of a population change over time. We use the word frequency, right? The gene frequency changes over time. What that means is across the entire population, what used to be normal is no longer normal. It pretend it used to be normal to be 5 foot exactly, right? We pretend that was the average height centuries ago. Right? And now, over the course of hundreds of years, that's not normal. Now being about 5'10" is normal, at least for adult males. I think it's like 5'7", 5'6", 5'7" for women. Don't quote me on that one. So that means the genes changed over the course of that time. That's evolution, right? We're not talking magically changing into another animal. It's not Pokemon where they just were a Pikachu and then become a Raichu, right? That has a different word. That's called metamorphosis. A caterpillar becoming a butterfly is metamorphosis. Evolution is not about the one animal. It's about the entire population changing genetically over the course of centuries. And we got two types of evolution we're going to talk about, guys. Divergent evolution and convergent evolution. Let's break these words down really quick because it's going to make life a lot easier if you understand them. Divergent, I'm not talking about the book series. Diverge, to diverge means to separate. So this kind of evolution is going to happen because a group of animals separated. You know, half of them went one way, half of them went the other way. And that's going to cause two different forms of evolution. Convergent, To converge means to come together. So that means two different groups of animals who are not related are going to come together, hang out in the same area with the same needs, and have a similar evolution. It does not make them the same animals, though, right? They don't become the same group. I'll show you what I mean a little bit when we get there. So let's talk about first divergent evolution. And yes, I did just say Pokemon is not the answer, but I like this picture. So we are going to pretend Pokemon rules are different. Right. Divergent evolution is when the species evolved from the same ancestor. That ancestor, not the one individual, but the group, the population, right? That population of Eevee over here got too big and they all split and went different directions, in different locations with different needs. So they got different evolutions. You know, they're going to look similar to each other because of shared genetics. So take a look here. This Eevee, I want you making a story, okay? Because that's what evolution is, a long drawn out thing. So we're going to have stories. So here's your story. Eevee lives out in the woods. Yeah. Nice woodland creature, but the population got way too big. They were running out of resources, running out of room. They were getting uncomfortable. So they all moved into different locations. A group of them decided, I want to move out into the ocean for some reason. That sounds like a good idea. And over the course of centuries, different needs arose living in the water, and different mutations may have happened that ended up being a good thing. Like the legs fusing together is actually a common mutation, but living out in the water helped act like a flipper and helped them swim. It was a good thing. One of them a group of them going to Antarctica and getting traits that are good for living out in the ice. Them moving up the top of a mountain, up in the clouds where there's a lot of electricity because of lightning, and started getting traits similar to that. So on and so forth around the whole thing. Maybe near a volcano, in a cave, stayed in the woods. I have no idea what that is. That's beyond psychic powers. I don't know. You figure that one out. But the fact is, they all evolved different ways because their environments are different. They had different needs, and natural selection chose differently for different groups for those different needs. But notice that they all look similar in the sense that they could be related, right? The long ears, walk around on four legs, similar eyes, they're all clearly related, even though they're not the same species anymore. They all have the same shared ancestor. This is divergent evolution. And this is what I was talking about with us and chimpanzees. Scientists think, based on evidence, that humans and chimps had some shared ancestor, and we went in the two different directions. Here's some evidence that backs that up, though. You're looking at some bone structures. This is a human upper limb, a bird's upper limb, a porpoise's upper limb. You don't know what a porpoise is? Kind of like a dolphin, and an elephant's upper limb. And we're looking at the bones here. And this is what we call homologous structures, meaning these structures are kind of the same. They're similar. Remember, homo in science means the same. Similar structures due to shared ancestors. Most mammals are going to have similar bones in their limbs. Take a look here. This is the humerus bone. Right? This is from your shoulder to your elbow. This is called the humerus. Birds have a humerus. The porpoise has the humerus. The elephant has a humerus. It may be shaped differently for different needs, but it is the same bone. Then here in the forearm, you actually have two bones, and that's why you're able to turn your hand around, because these bones are wrapping around each other. Birds also have that, even though they don't need to. They don't bend that way. They're not going to be twisting their wing at this point. They twist up here at the shoulder. So this is useless. There's no reason for them to have it, yet they do. Why would they? Possibly because of a shared ancestor between us and the bird, and that shared ancestor needed it. The bird stopped needing it, but they never had a reason to get rid of it either. Same thing with a porpoise. Same thing with an elephant. They don't need two bones there the way we do, but they still have it anyway, probably because of our ancestor. And then the phalange bones in your fingers. Birds have it. Actually, carpals, metacarpals, then phalanges. Birds have it, porpoises have it, elephant. Look at the porpoise. That's weird. They have finger bones, guys. They have finger bones in their flippers. There is no reason for an animal who doesn't have fingers to have finger bones unless they got it from an ancestor who did need it. Same thing with elephants. You know, they actually are walking around on their toe bones, and which is just a weird thing to do, except that, you know, an ancestor was aligned that way and now they're stuck with it. All right. It says do not write. I know you guys aren't writing right now. This was meant to be in class when you're taking notes. All right. Here's a shared trait amongst all apes. This is a really weird, cool thing that only apes can do. They have the ability to move their arm or too far, to move their upper limb around in a circle. And most animals can't do that. Your dog can't do that. Your cat can't do that. Apes can do that. Monkeys can do that. And so can humans. This weird thing is just something that we can do. And if we can do it, apes can do it, monkeys can do it, and no one else can do it, just us, there might be a shared relationship. Like I said, this is a fact, this spinning thing, and it acts as evidence that we may be related. So they may have come from a similar ancestor. So let me give you a little fictional example of how divergent evolution works, because I can't quite get all the information about every species and I don't want to make a mistake. So here's my fictional square-bodied horned goat dog that I invented. This guy lives up on a mountain full of caves, and his species is going to split up. Right? They're getting a little too overpopulated where they're living. Half of them is going to go stay inside the caves for shelter, and the other half is going to stay outside on the mountain, which means two completely different environments with two completely different sets of needs, and natural selection is going to work differently on these two groups. All right, so here's my square body horned goat dog, and they're going to split up to their two environments. This guy stays in the cave, this guy stays outside, right? And not just one, it's the entire group, all right? There's an entire population inside this cave and an entire population outside of the mountain. That's what we're looking at. So centuries of reproduction, and you'll notice here, after a few centuries, the limbs got a little bit shorter because maybe it's a low-hanging cave and being too tall means you smack your head on stalactites and get concussion. So having shorter legs is an evolutionary advantage. You don't get concussions, you're awake to reproduce. So if you're shorter, your kids will be shorter. Over here, living out in the mountain though, you gotta run, you gotta jump. Having long legs is a good thing. So if you have longer legs, that's a better survival trait out here than in here. So now we are already starting to see differences. Maybe some other differences are happening all at the same time too, you know, coloration. This guy, anyone who was able to blend in with their backgrounds were more survivable because predators go in, don't see them because they're blending in. So the ones who look like the cave walls survive and pass on their genes. Same rule out here, except they look more like the mountain. Predators don't see them. If they blend in, they pass on their genes, and now there's more of them looking like this. Over here, the eyes got a little bit bigger, the nose got bigger because it's dark in there. They can't depend on just their eyesight, so maybe their eyes, or maybe their nose gets bigger to compensate for sense of smell, or maybe their eyes get bigger to adjust to the darkness. Over here, plenty of sunlight. In fact, too much sunlight. When you end up getting dark under the eyes. Look at that change right there. A lot of animals who live outside get that dark, like raccoons get that dark under their eyes. It keeps the light from reflecting up. That is an evolutionary advantage. Anyone who happens to have darker eyes or darker fur under their eyes survive better. So football players do that too. Again, over here, like the horns got a little bit smaller. Horns are usually bigger, horns are better. They help you fight. Bigger horns are usually more survivable, except that if you're living in the cave with those stalactites hanging down, they get caught, you may have a better advantage with shorter horns. Where over here, nothing to get caught on outside, you know, bigger is better in the fight. So these guys are getting longer horns out here. Maybe they changed some more to match over time, the color, I mean. Over here, longer tail, thicker fur, because if you're running around in the bushes, thicker fur actually helps protect you from thorns and things. So that's probably thinner fur versus thicker fur. Over here, in shorter head, again, those stalactites are still causing a problem, so they're getting more and more uh, shrunken, I guess is a good term for it. We're over here, longer ears, because it helps you hear long distances. You don't need to hear long distances in a cave because things echo out here. They need to, so bigger ears would be better. That was the last one. So in the end, we started with the same species, and living in different environments, natural selection caused two different courses of change. And now we end up with two very genetically different animals. It may even be at a point where they can't reproduce with each other anymore. Either way, this is evolution, the very long, drawn out process of making change. This was divergent evolution because we started with one species and got two species. Convergent evolution is going to be the opposite, where instead of one group splitting, we got two groups coming together. Like in my picture here, I have a bird's wing and a fly's wing. They're not the same species, but they live in a similar environment. In the sky, they fly. So they're going to need similar traits, wings. Animals who evolve in the same environment are going to look similar due to shared needs. I'm going to backtrack real quick. Divergent evolution, these guys, whatever similarities they still have, is due to a shared ancestor. They're genetically linked. In convergent evolution, any similarities they have is not due to genetics. It is due to the fact that they both need it to survive. They both evolved the same or similar traits in order to live in that environment. So, same needs. Going back to my Pokemon group, again, pretending that the rules of Pokemon are different and they don't just metamorph, right? Pretend this is actually long drawn out centuries of evolution. The Bulbasaur, living out in the woods, living out in the forest, would evolve similar traits, needed traits to survive. Green coloration to help them blend in, flower on top to help them blend in. They all work on camouflage. Chikorita over here, which I'm surprised I remember that name because I don't remember the other two's names. They also evolve, even though they're not related, the same traits, right? Two different ancestors. These guys do not have the same ancestor, two different ancestors, but they both get the green coloration and flower decorations in order to blend in. Similar location, similar needs, similar evolution, so, but they're not related. That's convergent. They came together to the same location. Divergent, they split apart. Convergent, they came together. Here's a real life example. This is what we call analogous structures. Remember, homologous structures in divergent evolution, the ones we just talked about, homologous structures are similar because of shared ancestry, because they're genetically similar. They got from the same background. Analogous structures, right, are not the same. They're just similar. Remember, homologous. Homo means same. Analogous is an analogy. You're able to compare them, right? But they're not the same actual structure from genetics. So similar structures due to similar environment. Sharks and dolphins are not the same species. They're not even closely related at all. Dolphins are more closely related to us than they are to sharks. So, because they're mammals. Sharks and dolphins both adapted to life under the water. They're not actually related. They just have similar traits for similar needs. They need to swim. They are predators in the ocean, and predators in the ocean both need to be streamlined, called hydrodynamic. Water moves over them very easily, very smoothly. The dorsal fin helps them actually stay balanced. If you cut off a shark's dorsal fin, they start spinning out of control. The dorsal fin keeps them steady. The gray coloration is actually camouflage. It helps them blend in better when you're underwater. It's actually harder to see them if you're underneath they're lighter on the bottom. So if you're underneath looking up at the sun, then that light underneath helps them blend in, especially with the great white. But they're darker on top because if you're above them looking down to the depths of the darkness, that dark on top, if you see them, blends in. What else they got? The tail fin, of course. I think that's enough similarities. How about another example, one that's not a mammal or a fish? This one is a reptile. It's called an ichthyosaur. It's extinct. It doesn't exist anymore, but it is a prehistoric animal. About the same time as the dinosaurs, this ichthyosaur is a reptile, like a lizard, except that it lives in the ocean. So it's a predator in the ocean. So it has the same needs as a shark or a dolphin. So it gets the similar coloration, a similar shape, the dorsal fin, tail fin, everything. Not at all related to each other, but they look so similar because they had the same needs. They were in the same environment. That's convergent. Divergent, you split. Convergent, you come together. All right. And if we're going to be talking about divergent evolution, we're going to end up creating a family tree. Convergent evolution is like random similarities. That's really interesting. Divergent evolution is where we create a map that we can follow. So divergent evolutions, meaning we're all related, we got a family tree that we can follow, which is nice because you guys just did a family tree project, that pedigree project. So this should be very easy for you. I want you to look at this family tree that's on the page right now, and it's upside down. Right? Compared to the pedigree you just did, we did the grandparents on top, and then the grandkids on the bottom. All right, this is the opposite way. I don't know. It's just whoever made it decided to put the older ones on the bottom and the younger ones on top. It still works. So this is like a family tree, but instead of individuals who are related to each other, it's species who are related to each other. Right? This is not about the individuals. The closer they are on the tree, and I don't mean the words, I mean the connection points. The closer they are, these connection points are to each other, the more closely related they are. What I mean is the tuna and the snake, right? Whoever made the tree just drew the lines very long. It's these connection points, right? Some shared ancestor split. This way became tuna, and the group this way became something else. It's not a very complete tree. They're missing some information. This shared ancestor, this group here, this one split again, and some became reptiles, and you actually get a whole bunch of different kinds of reptiles branching off here along with the snakes, and some of them went this way to become other things. So, and evidence does suggest, by the way, that fish are the oldest ones, and then some stayed in, you have all the fish down here, and some left the water. And then out of the ones that left the water, most of them were reptilian. Again, evidence suggests that some of the earliest land animals were amphibious and then reptilian. We don't have the amphibians on here. And then the reptiles, and then the ones that split away from the reptiles. Like, missing some things here again. Some of them split off to become dinosaurs, and then apparently the dinosaurs split off and became birds. Shared ancestor here as well. And then the ones over here split off. Instead of becoming dinosaurs, became mammals. And then we got all the different varieties of mammals. Over here, hanging out on 4 legs mostly. Kangaroos go back and forth with it. And over here, hanging around on 2 legs mostly. Monkeys, again, spend a lot of time on 4 legs, but they're comfortable on 2. And then over here, out of all the 4-legged animals, all 4-legged mammals, rabbits, dogs, pigs, horse, donkey, and the horse and donkey are the more close related ones. They're very similar. You can actually breed them together and get a mule. But you can't breed a horse and a pig because they're too far. That's how we are reading this evolutionary tree. It's just like a family tree. Taking a look up here in more detail. Again, this person who made this picture decided to make it a literal tree, and the groups over here split apart. We got lemurs and then relatives to the lemurs, but shared ancestor. But then another split. Uh, some fossil evidence needs to be filled in here. But notice that as they split, they get a little bit more and more different from the lemurs. And so we start getting things like, I forget what the guy's called. From there, we get gorillas and chimps and humans would be on this branch together. And then we had that shared ancestor split apart again. So evolution, I know that was all really wordy, but there's a lot of information because it's a very long process. But it still shows familial connections. All right, we're going to stop there today. I want to talk about mutations later on and then talk about some more evidence of evolution later on. So we're going to do some work on the stuff that we talked about today. All right, so go back to Google Classroom, find the assignments, and good luck on that.